As a real estate agent, I know that buying a home, especially your first home, can feel really overwhelming. So today, I'm sitting down with Rebecca Suttles, a loan officer with Chattanooga Neighborhood Lending and Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise, to talk about what first-time buyers can expect and how CNE's programs work, especially with their down payment assistance programs, and why having the right loan officer in your corner matters just as much as having the right realtor like me right there alongside you. One of the most important parts of my job is connecting buyers with the right people at the right time in their journey, and when it comes to lending, that connection can make all the difference. That is why I am excited to introduce you to Chattanooga Neighborhood Enterprise, which is CNE, and Chattanooga Neighborhood Lending, a nonprofit that's helping make homeownership more accessible in our community. CNE has been working for over 30 years to create economically diverse neighborhoods, and through their lending arm, they offer both typical loan products like FHA, VA, and conventional loans to not super traditional products, which we'll get into a little later on in this video. They also have homebuyer education and down payment assistance, which are things that can be game changers for first-time homebuyers. Now, what makes them so unique is that unlike traditional lenders, they're a nonprofit, meaning that their goal isn't just to close loans, it's to set people up for long-term success. Now, were programs like this available when you bought your home? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to schedule a Zoom call with me in the link in the description so that we can get started out on the right foot.
I am Rebecca Suttles from Chattanooga, Tennessee. I have been in the industry for about 3 years, but been at CNE for just a couple of months. Before that, I was in philanthropy. I worked at the Community Foundation. I ran their scholarship department for about 20 years, helping first-generation college students seek funding for college on the scholarship level as well as federal and state level, helping them complete their FAFSA forms. And COVID hit, and I knew that learning was going to be very different. And I just said, what in the world can I do to still serve the community? That's very important to me. And a few years before the whispers of COVID came around, my students who were beginning to graduate were like, Miss Rebecca, I really want to buy a house. And I was like, okay, what about your budget? What about credit? They didn't know anything about it, so I shared the little knowledge that I knew about it. And then it just resurfaced again right before COVID. I said, you know what? I think I want to go into the housing industry, really on the lending side, because that's the money side. And I want people to understand what they're getting into. When I bought my house, I had a good lender who walked me through everything because it was so overwhelming. And I just made the assumption that all lenders were like that. And I learned that's not necessarily true, but it is important to me to make sure that people are clear on what they're getting into. I want to make it an equitable process because not everybody needs the same. Some people are like, oh, I've got it, I understand it. But then there are others who are like, talk to me like a 2-year-old. So I got into it and took a leap of faith. I ended up with a very good company that just took me in and really showed me the ropes. And I realized there are so many things to learn that I was really clear on guidelines and being able to explain to people why we needed certain information, no surprises to a certain extent. And that led me to not only being a loan officer, but also doing some processing and underwriting work. So my value add is that I understand the whole process. And came over to CNE where I learned, oh my goodness, they don't just do down payment assistance opportunities, they do it all, anything residential. So my goal is to not only help people understand the loan process, but understand that we are larger than down payment assistance. So I feel like this is a good space for me, and I do what I feel like I was put on earth to do.
Nice. Would you mind walking through some of the options you have for down payment assistance and what sorts of qualifications someone might need?
With our down payment assistance programs, we are a lender and a broker. We do our own lending, but also broker out loans to partner lenders. It's nice to be able to fish to a certain extent for these lower interest rates, and they have some other down payment assistance programs as well. So we have probably at least 8 different lenders that we work with, and some of them have their own down payment assistance program. C&E has their own in-house admin assistance program. We work with THDA. They all have their own guideline, but credit score is the big piece. So we have some that the mid score has to be at least a 620, and then others 640. We, of course, want our clients to have higher interest rates so we can help them decide the best fit. Down payment assistance does not mean it's free. It could be deferred, which means no payment as long as, for instance, you don't cash out refinance, you don't sell the home, and title transfer. I always like to also say people are not stuck in those. You can refinance, just know that you're going to have to pay it back. So you're never stuck. And then we have amortizing options, which means that there's a payment typically within your monthly payment for down payment assistance programs. I'm all about using somebody else's money first. And of course, we want to make sure it's in your budget. With our down payment assistance programs, for instance, THDA is either $6,000 or 5% of the purchase price. And our others can be 3.5% or 5%. And then we have some that are up to $45,000. And those are amortizing, which means, again, there's a payment involved. Typically, it is the same interest rate as your first lien. The nice thing is we get to fish around and get the lower interest rate. And sometimes we're able to get a lower interest rate than even THDA offers. So that's nice. Have to take the 5%. With us, it's whatever you need. That is the goal. We do not want anybody to be house poor. Interest rates are all over the place right now. I wish I did have the magic 8-ball where I could tell you like interest rates are going to be this, but they're not. But again, the nice thing is we are able to fish for interest rates with our partners and try and get you the lowest interest rate possible. We do traditional FHA, USDA, VA, conventional. We also do home ready, home possible, which are the lower down payment option for typically first-time home buyers, which is 3% on the conventional side. We also participate in a program through Freddie Mac called Home One. So there, it's again for first-time home buyers, but there's no income cap, which oftentimes, and I didn't say that about down payment assistance, but typically there's an income cap. We also do I-10 loans, which are for people who may not have a social security number. We do DSCR loans, debt service coverage ratio, which is specific to investment properties. We also do bank statement loans, which are for people who are typically self-employed. Because oftentimes our self-employed people don't always count their income fully. And so when you're trying to purchase a home, it's really important that you capture as much income as possible so your pre-approval can be substantial. But if that hasn't happened, then we have other options such as the bank statement. So we broker those out. And just knowing that those are what's called non-traditional type of loans, the interest rates are higher. And we ask for a lot more information, but just about anybody who has a job in some form or fashion can own property. And that was one of the big incentives for me to come over to C&E, was because I learned we have opportunities for people to take advantage of who are not just first-time home buyers, but also could be very seasoned and give us the opportunity to do that. And yeah, we just want to be one-stop shop. And we cover Bradley, Bledsoe, Grundy, Hamilton, Sequatchie, McMinn, Meg, Marion, Polk, and Ray counties. Starting with the application process, I'll have people call and say, hey, I need to be pre-approved. I give them two options. Either they can come in and we do the application online together, which I prefer because I like people in my face and they see the computer, and that just sparks more conversation and question. Typically when I sent the link, I try to ask for as much documentation up front as possible. So if you are hourly or salaried, then I'm asking typically for your year-end pay stubs from the previous 2 years, plus your current pay stubs, most recent 30-day pay stubs, bank statements. We can't do screenshots, so I usually have to have people send me a PDF form for 1 or 2 months. Tax forms that's specific to down payment assistance. Most are asking for 2 years worth of tax forms and W-2s or 1099s, and a driver's license. And that is the starter, and I always try to remind people every time you get paid, just send me an updated one. Okay. Those are the main documents needed to qualify you for income. Then I pull credit. If you're eligible for down payment assistance, I want your credit score to get where it needs to be. We use gross income, and we are only looking debt-wise at what shows up on your credit report, which are typically installment loans or revolving credit. If you are spending over 30% of your balance, your monthly payment's going to be higher. We want to get that as low as possible. It's not oftentimes that you have to pay off a loan or debt. We may just need it to be lower. I can run different scenarios to get you where you need to be. I'm always thinking about debt to income ratio. With down payment assistance programs, they're strict on their debt to income ratio. Usually it's about a 45. And when you are talking with me, I'll show you what that looks like. But then also the great thing about some of our other down payment assistance programs, if you are approved, we can take it higher, which is nice. So that provides people a little bit more buying power with those debt to income ratios being higher.
What do you think are some common mistakes people might make when applying for down payment assistance?
The gatekeepers for any loan are credit score or income. Credit score is easier to work on. Income's tougher. And when we're on edge, that's when I ask for a little bit more income document because I want to be able to count as much income as possible. Also, let's talk about Credit Karma for a second. Because typically when someone coming in off of the street and they say, I want to buy a house, we have a conversation. I'm like, are you attached to any credit monitoring services? Typically people say Credit Karma, credit-wise, and I say, that's great, but understand they use a different FICO scoring model than lenders. So for instance, if you have a bankruptcy or judgment, those pop up more on the lending side. I will ask, what's your score on Credit Karma? They may say 600. Then I know it's probably lower on the lending side. With that information, I say, I would love to connect you with our homebuyers education coach who can give you tips on increasing your credit score to get you ready to purchase a home. It's a free service that costs time and commitment. She will work to build an action plan to get their credit score up. We don't just say, it's not working for us right now. We still have a service to get you where you want to be. Right. And even like going back to the roadblocks with income, sometimes people's income just is not going to give them the opportunity to buy just because of the market right now, but can put them in a better position to rent. And so C&E also has a rental division, and you have to have a particular credit score in order to rent from us.
What's something you might suggest to get started in building their credit?
Yeah, I would suggest a couple of secured credit cards. You pay a deposit to the credit card company, then that is your credit limit. In the mortgage world, you have to have at least 6 months of history, even though you can get a credit score within a month, okay? Also, another option is getting added as an authorized user to someone with good credit. Not just anybody, you want them to have good credit. And good credit behavior means that they've had the card for at least a year and they have had no lates for at least a year. Let's say, for instance, we have a client who has no credit score. We can do some programs, specifically FHA, will allow us to do a non-traditional credit, which means that we could get verification of rent. We could get something from the water company, which basically means that they have to have no 30-day lates for at least a year. Some down payment assistance programs allow for that, some do not. So my job would be to figure out which down payment assistance allows for non-traditional credit. And so with my processing underwriting background, I think that comes into play when I'm able to say, this is why we're asking for this. And I try to give them as much information up front. And I always say, I know I'm numbing your brain right now because I'm just giving you so much information, but I'm walking you through this process. With down payment assistance programs, you typically have to take a home buying course. And for those who don't have access to a computer, and sometimes we just take that for granted that people, use your computer. When it's, no, people are actually using their phones to sign documents. It's really important to me to come in the office. If you need to take your home buying course here, we'll set you up, we'll get you some snacks, all of that to make sure that this is taken care of. And that's the part I love because, again, I say it all the time, this is the biggest financial decision people make. I don't want people to feel uncomfortable with the jargon. I want you to know what's going on. I tell people I will work for you, but I won't work harder than you. If you're backing down, then I'm backing down, except for in the loan process. I tell people, okay, I need you to buckle up because it's fast moving. And the slower you react, the slower the file's gonna,
Speaking of that timeline, what is typical that you see from someone coming into their first time, application? They're just getting it done on the computer to when actually closed.
So application, qualifying, maybe that takes a week. It could take a little bit less. But then the harder part is finding the property. They are out looking, making offers, and so that takes time. But once they find a property, I get the contract. It's a little bit slower on my end because we broker some out, and so it takes longer. But typically I have 3 days to get the disclosures out for them to sign. And it's like, please, even if you don't sign them, please just open them. If you don't open them after 3 days, I have to start the file all over again. And that just takes a lot of time. But once they sign, within 48 hours, I can get it to underwriting. It could take 30, 40 days. Sometimes less. There's certain things out of our control, like the appraisal and how fast the appraisal order is picked up and done, and title sometimes can take a little bit longer. Yeah.
And what would be probably one of the most common questions that I get asked from buyers is, what are the upfront costs that they'll have to pay?
Yeah. So typically the upfront costs are earnest money, which I always tell people that makes your offer a lot stronger, but it's not like I'm just giving out money. As long as we are able to source that money, that is added to the end. That's that much less money you'd have to bring to the table. And that is typically 1% of the purchase price. Then there is the home inspection, which is not required by lenders, but strongly recommended because the home inspector will look at things that the appraiser may not look at as comprehensively. But that can cost $400 to $600. And then there's the appraisal, which is required by the lender because we want to make sure that the home is being sold at least at the value of the appraisal. And they are looking at items that fall under health, safety, and security. And that can range anywhere from $500 to $700. But that is money that you have to pay out of pocket. I encourage people to have at least $3,000 saved if possible, even if they're using down payment assistance. And sometimes, depending, and during the loan consultation, would go over this, you may even have to have a little bit more as what we call reserve to make your file stronger. We don't use that money because we do not want it to look like your bank account's empty when you close on your house. You have to have a little cushion.
You can go to Home Goods.
Yes.
And get some baskets.
And that's another thing. Do not open any accounts or buy anything big during the loan process. Fortunately, I've not had this happen with any of my clients. I'm knocking on wood for future. People will think, oh, I can go buy something or open a credit card and they won't know. And we know. And it's not that we pull credit again, but we pull what's called an LQI. That lets us know your activities. And if your debt have gone up, we change that debt to the new price. If your debt has gone up, we have to add that. It depends on the loan product we use, but that could decrease your debt to income ratio and make the file ineligible. And we don't want that.
What advice would you give to someone who maybe isn't quite ready? Maybe they're 6 months, 9 months away from wanting to actually start looking at a home.
Yeah. One of the things that I encourage people to do is come in and have a conversation. Be very transparent about your debt. We can always do a mock type of scenario of what that looked like and what you need to work on. It's never too early. Home buying can be quick for some and not quick for others. And I would rather you be ready as early as possible than be in a situation where, oh my gosh, my rent is going up. I don't want you to scramble. I want everybody to be peaceful and calm when they go through this process. So I don't care if you are thinking about it a year from now. I still think it's good to at least have a conversation with a lender and get an action plan in order. If you come here, then I would have that conversation with you, but then also move you to our financial counselor to make you accountable for your goals.
Are there any post-purchase programs like home improvement loans?
Yeah, we have a rehab loan program. It is income capped, but we offer that. And Selah, who is the financial coach, is working on a post-purchasing program. So that post-purchasing is like helping prevent foreclosures. And one of the biggest issues with that is the breakdown in communication. People will ignore letters, people will ignore calls, and so when the time comes, it's almost too late. So we want to make sure that people understand the process. So Selah Melvin is working on more of a post-purchase. We do pre-purchase, the home buying piece, and then post-purchase.
Awesome. And then the rehab loan, are you able to explain a little bit more about that?
So it is strictly for primary homeowners, no investment properties, and typically, from what I've heard, it has been primarily seniors who've really taken advantage of it, who may have either a new roof or a new floor, major projects to a certain extent. It is a forgivable loan type of program.
What are some things that we may not have covered that you would want to make sure somebody would know about CNE and the programs you offer?
I want people to know we're here and available to talk with people. You don't have to call and make an appointment. You can just drop in and whoever's serving in that department will talk with you. I just want people to know that we are really striving to help people understand that we are community first and community centric, and we're here to answer questions. And for those who don't know about us, it's just important that come on by. We want you to get to know us. Being the lender here, it's important that realtors know what we do. We'd like to be thought of top of mind when it comes to clients, not just for down payment assistance, but all of the other products that we offer, but also for the community to know what we do as well. We've got a lot of building going on, and sometimes it's hard to really get people excited about buying a house when we don't know what the interest rates will look like. But I just want people to be ready. When they are ready and they feel like I'm buying a house regardless of the interest rate, then they're ready.
Yeah.
It's COVID
that
has thrown people for a loop, and it just makes it that much harder. And because everybody talks interest rate, they feel like, oh, it's the interest rate. But you're right. When I sit them down, I'm like, this is what your payment could look like if you are purchasing this house. And then they're like, okay, I can do that. Or that's stretching my budget. Can we bring it down? Also, what is hard is when people have been paying like $600 a month for rent, which is awesome, but it's not like realistic. It's not real. We're fortunate your landlord allowed that, but I tell them, I need you to understand that's not what it's gonna look like. That's hard sometimes, but this is your house. You get to paint, you get to do whatever. I'm working with this lady, she's 55, and she says, I've never had a house, but I want a house. The only thing I want is a porch. I said, okay. She's one of those that has paid a very small amount for a long time. And when I told her, this is what we're looking at, I think I can do that. And I was like, okay, good.
What's the most rewarding part of the job for you?
I love meeting the people who are willing to come in, and most people are. I think COVID spoiled many of us. Not me, the Zoom meetings, I'm like, I'm over it. Like, I'm not paying attention, just looked like it. But people wanting to come in, walking them through the process, things beginning to click. They're asking questions when I pull their credit, and I'm like, okay, you have a little bit of a sense of humor because it takes so long. I always tell people, it's not your credit. I just need you to understand this computer takes a long time. And then they'll have some story, and I'm like, doesn't matter. It's just a number. We can fix it. And then this is like no judgment zone. It's important what the environment and you look like as the person helping them, because you're the person with the knowledge. I want them educated about the process. And I want them to know I'm an advocate for them as well. If they come to me and don't have a realtor, I'm like, who's the best connection for them? They're gonna need someone to educate them. And then you realize, you may not wanna work with everybody because you just don't connect. Some relationships are very transactional. I like to pick up the phone and say, they're gonna need this. We didn't see this initially. I'm gonna talk to my client, then I call the buyer's agent and say, hey, I just need you to understand. This is what's going on. We're fixing it. My job is to let you know I've got a remedy going on. And so being able to connect the buyer who's already vulnerable anyway, most of the time, to someone who I know is going to take care of them, that's satisfying. So yeah, it's the people part, most important.
What is, if you had to say one or two of your favorite restaurants in Chattanooga?
Okay. I will say I like Public House. They have, and haven't been there in a while because when I used to work out in the East Brainerd area, I wasn't able to come downtown a lot, but they have liver and grit, which are good.
Really?
So, yes, liver and grit. And then I just discovered, Goodfellas Pizza. Have you had their pizza? We had it for lunch one day here. Now I've been there at least 4 times in the last 2 weeks.
Talking with Rebecca really reinforced something that I see every day as a real estate agent. That buying a home isn't just about finding the right house, but it's about having the right team to guide you through the process. And for a lot of buyers, especially first-timers, lending is one of the trickiest parts to navigate. Organizations like Chattanooga Neighborhood Lending are a huge asset to our community because they're focused on helping people, not just closing their deal. Their down payment assistance, personalized loan options, and homebuyer education can really make all the difference in turning home ownership from a dream into a reality. And remember that despite their name, they service 10 counties in southeastern Tennessee. If you're thinking about buying or selling, my advice is simple. Work with people who have your best interests at heart. Whether it's finding the right home, the right loan, or the right timing, I would love to help you connect the dots. And if CNE sounds like the right fit for you, don't hesitate to reach out to Rebecca and her team and then get in touch with me so that we can start the journey of finding your home. I know that homeownership is a huge step, but with the right people on your side, it's one that you can take with confidence. Now, I'm always just a phone call or a text message away, so let's go ahead and get started today. And then just from a personal story of one of my clients utilizing CNE's programs, we have been searching for well over a year, almost a year and a quarter, for a house. They thought that they had just got priced out of the Chattanooga market, that they were not going to be able to have home ownership as something that they could call, and they didn't think that home ownership was going to be attainable in their lifetime. I was able to connect them with Rebecca through CNE, and Rebecca was able to take the reins and get them the loan that fit them, get the down payment assistance taken care of for them as well, and we found a home that was in their budget that they have now moved into with their family and are absolutely loving their situation now because they can call themselves homeowners. Now, if that sounds like you, make sure to get in touch with me through that link below in the description, and I would absolutely love to be a part of that journey with you.